I didn't know anyone that prayed the rosary, went to confession, this and that, whatever. Like it was a different form of Catholicism, you could say, watered down. And so like having a saint intercede for you was a new thing for me at the time. And I decided to, St. Anthony of Padua, shout out, asked him to intercede. And I also just realized I wasn't asking God to help me with this situation because I thought this situation was too hard for God, which is silly. But this is the first time I actually said, hey God, I don't know how you can figure this out, how you can solve this. But if you could, like, it would just be awesome. I don't know how you could possibly do it, but it'd be cool if you did. There's just a lot more at stake, and it's not just me, you know? So that's maybe the criteria for how many questions I'm asking before committing to something is like, how could this affect other people? And if it's not really going to affect other people too much, then maybe I'll maintain that attitude of just going for it. But yeah, I got to factor other people in.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Catholic Founders Podcast. I'm your host, Silas Maynor. On Catholic Founders, we are on a mission to understand how to be a Catholic business owner, really how to be an instrument of God's will in the world. Before we start, I do have an ask. We are looking for sponsors for this show to help fund the work that we're doing. So if you're interested in getting in front of hundreds of Catholic business owners multiple times a week to saturate their brains with your existence, please reach out to admin@catholicfounders.com and we'll get started. Okay, recently I recorded an episode with the one and only Jimmy Coleman. If you don't know him, you may not spend much time on LinkedIn, or at least not in the Catholic circles of LinkedIn. He founded a company called Lead Baller that ended up helping companies get leads and grew that to a 7-figure business, and then eventually kind of sold it off to another company and joined Arimathea to be their chief growth officer right at the time that they were starting, actually. And most recently, he launched a new project called X Cathedra. That's X, the letter X, Cathedra. A nice play on words for us as Catholics. Because the conversation was so good, we ended up recording for almost an hour and 25 minutes. So we're breaking this episode up into 2 parts. This first part, we're primarily covering his story, specifically of building his business and selling it and exiting it, but also his conversion story. And we largely focus on his perception or his understanding of success before and after his faith started to mean a lot to him. But do stay tuned for the second part, because he is an expert at growth and an expert at many things, like how to go to market, how to get in front of customers. And he gives us a mini mastermind on that in the second episode that we'll be releasing with him very soon. So it's kind of we're segmenting out part of the discussion on that growth tactics component. There's a lot of value in there. I personally can say that from the things he mentioned, I will find a lot of value in my own business. And one thing before we do start the episode, I wanted to plug one thing. He mentioned in that specific discussion about growing your business, the need to have offshore talent in order to scale, or at least it's a good way to scale affordably, right? So if you'd like to do that, but you want some guidance, you want to make sure that you're hiring Catholic VAs overseas, you can reach out to Paraclete VA. It's a side project that myself and Karen created to help connect her network of Catholic VAs to Catholic business owners in the US because they're looking for better employment. So if you'd like somebody you can trust, reach out to admin@catholicfounders.com to get started, and we'll go from there. All right, enjoy this discussion with Jimmy. All right, welcome to the pod, Jimmy. How you doing?
Doing awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely not. I can't believe I haven't had you on it yet. I mean, it's definitely we were getting you on within the first 14 months of the pod, so you're pretty early still. But you've been pretty ubiquitous on LinkedIn, so and you got a lot of cool stuff you're doing. So let's start with this. We'll get it cold open here. What does it mean to drop bombs on Mammon?
Yeah, I like being a troublemaker and finding fun ways to describe what I do. So as a lot of people know, one of my ventures is I'm a chief growth officer and partner in Arimathea Investing, which, helps people align their investments with their values, their Catholic values. And as a product of doing that, we are, defunding evil. We're making it more profitable for companies to have Catholic values. So we kind of invented a thing that every small little win, every dollar moved over, every positive thing that happens within Arimathea, I say that we just essentially dropped a spiritual bomb on Mammon. And as the chief growth officer, it's like kind of my KPI is how many bombs did we drop on Mammon today.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I've always, I mean, it's very provocative, right? The statement, but I was always like, what exactly does he mean by that, right? We've had Daniel on the pod in episode 39, I think. So we've talked about Arimathea. I was really excited to have you guys come, and the work you're doing in there is amazing. But just to understand, like your the way you say it is like, hey, this is my way of like kind of giving battle effectively to the devil. The way we're doing it is like specifically on a finance side, right? Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I'm noticing that words like provocative and violent, old, keep coming up as ways that people are describing me. So just yesterday, someone commented on my post saying that it was very provocative. So it is what it is. I guess that's one of my things.
Hey, sometimes sometimes you when the truth is set in a dark place, it illuminates very brightly, very violently, right? So I think it's okay. I feel like Saint Paul was a relatively violent person, even after his conversion, right? I feel like it's okay, right? You have to do it in the right way. Very cool, man. Well, let's get into a little bit of your story. So I don't think you've shared necessarily most of this stuff. So I hope this will be new. But if there's anything that's not super new, you can feel free to reference past episodes you've done. But I want to know, when did you start kind of doing entrepreneurial things in your life?
Well, yeah, so I started my first company in 2019. Well, really, okay. You asked when did I start doing entrepreneurial things in my life? So in high school, there was this thing called Jim's Collectible Hats, etc. I think was what I called it. And I loved thrift shopping in high school. So this is not a story I've shared on a podcast. No one knows about Jim's Collectible Hats. It kind of faded into the abyss eventually, but I didn't have a cool exit. But like I remember I had a hat collection of like 80 hats that I started like selling to people, then antique shopping and whatever. Like I was okay enough in high school to not want to like get into trouble. And so to me, what was fun is thrifting and finding treasures and things. And so that's what me and a couple of my buddies would do, and started selling it to people. And there was some cool stuff in there. Like there was like a red man like chewing tobacco hat that I had, or this like Scotland plaid. Yeah. So that was like the first step, and then it evolved into more of a real job, ish, but not totally. I never had a truly like real job, but out of high school I started selling Cutco knives
Hmm.
for like, and I didn't just do it for 3 days. I did it for like 3 years.
Yeah.
It was really cool because in high school, I got really bad grades. It was a struggle for me sitting at a desk, as you can imagine, really tough. And I didn't know anyone else that was like that. I was in a small town, so most people had just like, again, normal jobs. So it was a big deal for me to come right out of high school and into that summer. And funny timing, the valedictorian who had the best grades in our whole class started selling Cutco knives the same time as me. And I was beating him and everyone else in the office and setting like winning competitions and stuff, and eventually ran one of the top offices in the country. And so it was a very good thing for me to experience like early on into my career out of high school, when I thought that I was just gonna like not do anything professional. I thought I was gonna. I remember saying out of high school, mainly because I didn't think I was capable of much. If as long as I could just make enough to provide for my family, which I like, whatever the bitter minimum is, like maybe I can aspire to that. Is where I was kind of gunning for coming out of high school.
Yeah. I mean, this is really fascinating. This way we transform. Like, I can relate to your story a lot. Like, I did not early on think that I could achieve hardly anything, but I ended up kind of getting very lucky that there was a mentor, somebody who just started mentoring me. I didn't even ask for mentorship, and it made me realize that there was much more I could achieve through just like actively trying. But I'm curious, what motivated you exactly, do you think, in the entrepreneurship stuff, like with the selling hats? Like, was there something specifically that kind of sparked the idea, or was it just that you were super bored with school? Like, what was the real reason that you were motivated to do that?
I think a couple things. So anytime I do something and I really like intentionally do, I'm not forced to. Again, sitting at a desk, I was just kind of forced there. But like, I always want to be the best at it. And like people say that you're the average of the people that you, let's say the 5 people you spend your time with. I'm actually not usually the average. I usually am the higher upper quartile at the very least of the average of people that I'm around. But what really matters is what is that group of people define as success?
Yeah.
So there's been plenty of times where I was just around people that weren't defining success the right way, and therefore I was kind of a leader of an anthill of something that in eternity like doesn't really matter. So I would say like coming out of high school, there was some like financial struggles in my family, and just again with the transition of going from like not thinking I would amount to much to having a lot of success in sales. I kind of made that my god, and I justified money for everything because I saw I saw what happens when there's a lack of money and the hardship that can come from that. And I really justified money as a justification for anything. If you can make more and more and more and more and more, you can do more good and whatever. So, um, and I would say that was pretty much the case until 4 years ago. So this is like most of my 20s that I felt this way. I hope this is answering your original question,
Yeah.
but yeah, up until recently, it was just, money was like the main motivator, and just generally winning. Like I would, if it's fantasy football, like I can't do it. Like please don't invite me. I care a lot. There could be
Yeah.
$0 on the line. I just really have to win. I'll spend all my time looking at who's like a free agent or whatever, and just like it's a whole video game, same thing. It's if you guys want to see the worst version of me, it's video games because I'm so bad at video games, but it doesn't matter. I still really, really badly want to win, and I become a horrible person. So don't invite
Yeah.
me to play video games, and don't invite me to play fantasy football.
I think I'm gonna have to like reject my brother's fantasy invite this next year because I only did it once so far, and it's the same thing. It's like there's no money on the line whatsoever, but I just like my entire Sunday is cooked because all I am is just stressed about everybody like what their stats are, right? And it's such a silly thing, but I understand. I completely resonate with that. Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Like we a lot of times I think that again we could get into it. This is not like a psychology podcast, but there's a lot of things that can drive us, and this idea of when success is not defined properly for us as Catholics, it's very easy to fall into things like being the best at making money, being the best at sales or whatever, these different things. And it's not until later on that you have a true success. So I'll get back to that in a bit, but I'd like to have you kind of fast forward, maybe give like the very short like footnote about the career and, until you started lead baller, and then I want to talk a little bit more there. Hey guys, Silas Maynor here. If you'd like to host a Catholic Founders meetup in your area, reach out to us today and we'll help you organize it. It's not good for us to build alone. It's better to work together with the other Catholic business owners in our community so that we can assert our influence and bring the culture back to God. But all of this starts with knowing who the other Catholic business owners are. It starts with friendship, whether that's over breakfast, over bagels, going to adoration and spending some time together for drinks afterwards, doesn't really matter. We can't do this without friendship. Reach out to us at admin@catholicfounders.com and we will help you organize your event, get started, and promote it. Thank you for being part of this community.
Yeah, I mean, the transition there quickly here was I did the knife thing for like 3 years. I went from sales guy to running one of the top offices in the country, then having an office of my own. And I mean, I learned so much. I ran a business as like a 19-year-old. It's pretty wild. So that was really cool. But eventually I started recognizing the people that were like ahead of me. Actually, I achieved pretty much the top position I could achieve in the company. And I recognized the people that are in my role. If they were like breaking records, and again, I'm worshiping money at this time. So if they're breaking records, they're making they're making multiple six figures. And I just didn't want to be in a vehicle where I'd have to be in the top like 1% in order to make that much money, especially if we're working 7 days a week. It was a grind. And the people that had been in the business for decades, that was the case for them too. So really my motivation at that point is like, hey, I wasn't respecting the Sabbath, so I'm okay with working that hard, but is there another vehicle that's better for me to make more money working that hard? And I went to financial services for a short period of time and that's actually what was interesting about that is at Cutco, you learn how to hear no a lot of times. Like I'm very comfortable now with hearing no. It doesn't really faze me, and it's a weapon in my arsenal. It's really awesome. But then going into the financial services, you had to learn how to do that without coming across as this like sales animal, because no one wants that guy to manage their life savings or create a financial plan for them. So I had a lot of the skills I have now and I use now is like this is a product of being put into this corner of, yes, needing to accomplish a big sales number or whatever, but also do it in such a way that is well received. And that was a nice thing for me to pick up along the way. Eventually, I'm in the industry now because I always made the joke, I broke so many rules that I had to get out of there, get out of the industry as fast as possible before and when I say breaking rules, like not running things by compliance and, just finding the line and maybe crossing it sometimes and just trying things out. But I went to a medical startup after that and helped them expand. And for whatever reason, I think we were just having a lot of success in growing that this medical lab. I was growing the business in ways that were maybe unorthodox but working, and people were really interested in it. And my personal brand started growing a little bit from there. Started teaching people some of the strategies that I was using and speaking at things and whatever. And people would tell me that, hey, what you just gave to us for free is better than what we just paid someone else who consulted our company. And I heard that enough times to give me the confidence to think, okay, maybe I should start getting paid to teach people these things. And that's when I launched my consulting practice.
Okay, got it. And that's Lead Baller. That was what Lead Baller was.
Well, yeah. So the first year I was consulting, and then I had a couple companies just asked me to do it for them. Actually, the very first one was TikTok of all companies. And I was also reading a book called Built to Sell at the time, which was essentially taking a very complex business model. It took a creative agency, and it was the use case of in the book that they used, and were instructing the readers on how to package that up in such a way to where it could be, put into a process that is then sellable, so that you're not the bottleneck to value. And so I was kind of taking some of the best practices from that and productized my intellectual property that I was teaching people, and put it into a product. And that product was Lead Baller.
Okay. Now tell us a little bit more about that, the journey of building that, because I understand it was like a pretty successful business, especially in that area. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that journey, and then let's go through to the kind of acquisition process or the exit process?
Yeah. So yeah, it was pretty wild. What we essentially started out as is I had to figure out a way to frame my intellectual property here, right? And so the story of like the reason it's named Lead Baller, because we initially were just a LinkedIn lead generation agency. We would help people book meetings with people that they wanted to have sales meetings with, and our platform for that was LinkedIn. And the way we explained our process initially was you connect with someone, now they're at bat. Then you endorse them for a skill. Now they're at first base. Then you comment on their post. Now they're at second base. Then you like their post. Now they're on third base. Now they've seen your face show up like 3 or 4 times. And now is the prime time to shoot them a message, and you send them a series of follow-up messages and things like that. And so we explained it in this like baseball field methodology, and that's why we called it Lead Baller. And then obviously the clients could call themselves Lead Ballers, and we had a lot of fun with that. There's that 90s rap song, "Wanna Be a Baller," that we would play all the time. So we had a lot of fun, and had some really cool results happen. For like, we have amazing testimonials, case studies of people. One of our first clients who initially hated us in like the first week because we were just so bad at communicating the things we were doing and figuring those things out. But then 2 weeks later, he's like, "Whoa, dude, I just closed a $300,000 LTV client. Yeah, you have me for life, basically." Yeah, we really liked working with people who the bigger their average deal size was, the better, because regardless, our process worked. So we might as well work with the people that if we get them 5 leads, they're like, we are rock stars, versus, some people that need like 50 of those in order for them to get an ROI. But we built that to a 7-figure agency, which for that weird little niche, no one very few, we're in the top 1 percentile of that industry. But I know that's not very big in the grand scheme of business, but we figured out a way to scale things that weren't scalable. I'll tell one more example of this. Our initial way that we would reach out to people was voice notes. And there are ways to kind of streamline this nowadays, but this is again like 2019, 2020. What we would do, people thought we were like crazy developers, but definitely not. We had virtual assistants in the Philippines that had burner phones logging into our clients' accounts in a secure way. And then, there's that microphone in a LinkedIn, when you have to be using the app though. On the LinkedIn inbox, you hold that down. And so we would get the client to pre-record a message and voice note that they would want to say to the people that are on the particular target list that we built for them. Yeah. And then the virtual assistant would press it up against the speaker on the computer and hold down and just do that. Let's say there's 30 messages to send to that target person that day. Like, they would do that 30 times over and over again for that client. And then we started getting feedback from clients because they didn't know how we were doing this. They would say, "Hey, for some reason there's like chickens clucking in the background and dogs barking." And so we had to build this like egg carton contraption that made it more soundproof. Like, we were totally like rigging this whole thing. But anyways, yeah, happy So yeah, scaled to seven figures and always were maybe to a fault trying to do things in a disruptive
Yeah.
fashion.
And what was the outcome of that? So you ended up, obviously moving after that to Arimathea, if I understand correctly, the exact timing. But how did Lead Baller come to a conclusion? Quick question for all the Catholic business owners listening. Are you running your business, or is your business running you through all of the admin tasks that you're doing on a regular basis? We see so many founders doing repeatable administrative tasks, and that's why we started Paraclete VA. We bridge the gap by connecting you with high-quality, Catholic, and vetted virtual assistants from all around the world who come from our existing network so that we know we can trust them, and so can you. Many of our Catholic Founders Guild members have hired through this service and are using this to offload their finance, marketing, administrative, and other busy work so that they can focus on what really matters and growing their business. It's the stuff that needs to get done but shouldn't be done by you. The cost is simple. Pay $500 on the day the candidate starts and $500 if you're still happy with them after 30 days. Most hires take less than 10 days to fill. Just email admin@catholicfounders.com with a little bit about what you're looking for. We'll send you some candidates, you do some interviews. Most of the time, you'll have your hire in under 10 days, and this way you can start focusing on what really matters. Stop doing the busy work and start moving the needle.
Yeah, it's kind of a sad ending actually. Like we didn't get to. So basically, I decided, I think it was the fall of 2023 that I decided, hey, I want to exit out of this. And we had people interested pretty much every year we existed in acquiring our company, which is great. So I actually thought it'd be pretty easy because I could just call out the people that, wanted to buy us in the past. But as you know, it's like there's timing involved and whatever else. But so anyways, it was that November. And the reason I reached that conclusion is I was actually getting some mentorship from a guy that had a big exit as a more traditional agency, like a $50 million exit. And he was kind of mapping out how we should pay ourselves based on like a percentage of how many people we have in the C-suite and what our revenue is and this and that, our profit and all this. It just seemed like kind of back to what I said with the cut. It wasn't the best way to make money. It's a very tricky business to be in because the way we're doing it is we're always playing in someone else's sandbox and the rules are always changing. It's a very stressful business to be in. It actually is kind of a better idea to take the strategies that we're doing for other companies times 50 or 60 or 70 and to do that for your own products, your own thing. Because then if something changes, you can quickly pivot. It's not a big deal. You don't have to change the deliverables across like, let's say 50 clients. And so anyways, it's just there's better ways to make a living is a one simple way of putting that. So I started exploring options, and there's one company in particular that showed a lot of interest, but they promised an LOI for 3 months and kind of suckered me into believing that it would be coming in the next week. And that's how we kind of started the year, and maybe this is 2024 now, assuming that. And I haven't exited a company before, so I'm very new at this.
Yeah.
But I was operating the business in such a way that, hey, this business is not going to exist like in 2 weeks. I've thought that every week for the first like 3 or 4 months of 2024. And so when that happens, because their plan was to not have sell the client base to a competitor or something like that. We just want your ability to book a lot of meetings plugged into our business. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. So we're not going to truly be an agency anymore. So when there's certain like problems that are coming up that are going to be irrelevant in 3 weeks, like you're not, you're kind of punting those. You're not prioritizing them, but then you do that across a certain number of months. It put us in a kind of a tricky situation. And that company, I started looking somewhere else eventually, talked to another company. It was a very similar story, long story short. We kind of got to a place where we didn't just like want to sell it, but we kind of like needed to. We needed to find an exit. And at this point, I'm not really interested anymore in having something that's like a nice headline anymore. Like I'm just kind of fed up with the whole thing, looking to get out. And cool story is I remember, and I'm somewhat new to Catholicism, like in the truth, like growing up, I didn't know anyone that prayed the rosary, went to confession, this and that, whatever. Like it was a different form of Catholicism, you could say, watered down. And so like having a saint intercede for you is a new thing for me at the time. And I decided to St. Anthony of Padua, shout out, asked him to intercede. And I also just realized I wasn't asking God to help me with this situation because I thought this situation was too hard for God,
Mm.
which is silly. But this is the first time I actually said, "Hey God, I don't know how you can figure this out, how you can solve this, but if you could, like, it would just be awesome. I don't know how you could possibly do it, but it'd be cool if you did." I was also talking with Daniel at the time, and he was just like putting together his founding team for Arimathea, and so we're having conversations. Long story short, like a month later, I'm just chatting with Daniel, and he's like, "Hey man, what's keeping you from doing this?" And I explained the whole lead baller situation. He's like, "Well, how about I just buy into the company? We kind of simplify the business model, and that way you can help me at Arimathea." And it worked out. It was a dream come true. And what we did was we took one of the companies that we were going to sell lead baller to and just became an affiliate company of theirs, gave them our clients, collected revenue from that, handed them off. They didn't, again, they weren't a good acquisition partner. They weren't a very good affiliate partner, we found out, and they lost most of those clients eventually. So the revenue went away with that as well. So this was a very difficult period of time in my life because I obviously had people that put trust into me by giving me their money and buying into lead baller. I was able to convince them that, hey, I'm putting you in better hands. It didn't go well.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of apologizing to do for some people. I think some people still got good results, but that company ended up losing most of those clients after a month and a half. They
It's
just,
got to be tough, man. How
yeah,
did
they
you
didn't take
how
it
did you
very
go through
seriously.
that? I've not quite faced the same exact thing, but I've had a couple times where, I've overcommitted to my clients and I have to like say, "Hey guys, like I'm sorry, I have to like pause this engagement for now," or whatever. Like how did you on the other side of that, what was the lesson that you had from having to do that apologizing or like having that, I guess you could say, humiliation? Was there a particular thing that you realized after going through it that was different than you thought it would be before you had to go do it?
Well, yeah, so some of it was like, just taking time with people and giving free consulting and making for that way. I gave what I could give, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, the lesson learned, so there's this beautiful thing that I do where I do overcommit myself to things. And what's the upside of that is some of the coolest things have happened as a product. Like we're signing up for an ultra marathon 3 days before, 50-mile like trail race. And then like getting third place and then making that like a part of my thing that I do, and that's evolved into some other cool things. And so there's something beautiful about like just going for something and then figuring it out. But I did see the product of that mentality, how it could affect other people. And that doesn't feel good. Like if
Mm.
it brings me pain, not that big of a deal. Like I'll learn from the pain and whatever. But when it affects other people, like that really just kills me, right? And so now when I'm going about making decisions and getting myself into something, signing up for something, there's a lot of clarification and asking more questions. Whereas before, I might not have done that as much. And also, I have a family to provide for now. Like there's just a lot more at stake, and it's not just me. So that's maybe the criteria for how many questions I'm asking before committing to something is like, how could this affect other people? And
Yeah.
if it's not really going to affect other people too much, then maybe I'll maintain that attitude of just going for it. But yeah, I got to factor other people in.
I like that a lot. I mean, I could definitely take that and put it in my own book of lessons of things that I should probably do. So I appreciate that. Now, I want to understand and kind of dip in a little bit. What was your faith journey like through those last couple years? Because you said that you referenced that you kind of came back to the faith, what, like four-ish years ago?
Yeah, 4-ish years ago. It's kind of cliche, but my son was born, right? And so you have these graces fall upon you, which come in the form of weight on your shoulders sometimes. And I remember like as soon as Morgan was pregnant, I started like driving differently and like being very protective if someone's like coming in our lane, like freaking out. And but one of those things too is like you feel this sense of responsibility to be the spiritual leader of your household. And even if you can't quite articulate what that means initially, I did feel this responsibility of like giving my children the truth, and regardless of where that led. So at the time, I was acting more as a Protestant. It's very easy for me to do that. Most of my friends are Christian, and my parents are happy that I overall like Jesus for the most part. But I would say I was more of like just Christian whenever is convenient. And if it was inconvenient and didn't fit within society's standards, then I just wasn't. I just like made exceptions for that part. I also noticed that society standards are moving further away from Christianity. And I was thinking I was putting myself in my son's shoes 20 years later, noticing that if he is going to be Christian, it might not be as convenient as it is for me right now.
Mm.
So whatever we're going to do, we need to be intentional about it. And I think that I had a lot of questions about theism in general that were holding me back from like diving all in. And so I had to face those head on. And I think a great way of doing that, watching debates between atheists versus theists, and that way it's not like an echo chamber. There's like someone that usually is better than you at asking those questions real time so that you don't have these things like festering in the back of your mind. I was pleasantly surprised by that outcome, by the way, of like, okay, theism. I thought that logic would lead me towards atheism. That's just kind of what I was told. And then I was kind of pleasantly surprised to see just how much of a stretch atheism is. And, I kind of boiled it down to the fine tuning argument versus like multiverse and that whole thing. And it's just pretty obvious that, fine tuning is how things work in general. And then the next step was, okay, well, who is God? So is it Buddha? Is it whatever Islam says? Is it, Hindu? So the resurrection is a shortcut for that, right? If it's true, liar, lunatic, or Lord. So pleasantly surprised by that one too, because like, all right, I get that you're raised Christian, you're told that Jesus rose from the dead, all that, but like, all right, this is a human that rose from the dead. Like, am I actually gonna buy into that? Like full fledged? Am I gonna lay my life down for that? And pleasantly surprised by that one too. Probably the biggest thing for me, there's a lot of supporting reasons, but seeing the testimonies of people that were persecuting Christians, you keep mentioning St. Paul, like people that were persecuting Christians witnessed the resurrection and then became people that are willing to die for the truth is a really powerful testimony.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's okay, well, which flavor of Christianity? And I wasn't rooting for Catholicism at this point, but I did stumble upon a debate about the Eucharist between a Catholic and a Protestant. And I was like, hey, I grew up Catholic. I know that you guys don't actually believe this stuff. But man, obviously you have just what it said in the Bible. Jesus is kind of like getting annoyed, like repeating himself over and over again. Like, yeah, you gnaw on it, you chew on it. Eat my flesh, drink my blood. And then obviously there's Eucharistic miracles where, the objections that people have for the Eucharistic miracles kind of sound like what atheists would say about the resurrection. And then the strongest hook for me is just a historical argument, which is, for the first 1,500 years of Christianity, we're all doing the same thing, and then all of a sudden we're not. And I was just coming out of going to Protestant Sunday services where there's no acknowledgement of the Eucharist. Like, it is all about the pastor, and thanks to McSweeney, right? And they've replaced the Eucharist with like better childcare, a cool pastor with tight pants and holes in his jeans and a good haircut and proximity. And like Matthew Kelly says, is that people leaving Catholicism boils down to one thing: it's belief in the true presence of the Eucharist. Because if you truly believe in that, every other reason, like, oh yeah, like there's people doing bad things, whatever, like you're going to go to wherever God is. You're going to go and touch God instead of all these other silly reasons. And so anyways, that was the strongest hook for me. Obviously there's other supporting cases for Catholicism, but that's then that's when I came across Set Ventures, where you and I became more familiar with each other, and a community for Catholic entrepreneurs who want to become saints. And that's one thing just to say, but also like you get to know someone like John Cannon, who's like capable of helping you do that. And I was like, okay, if I really want to say that my faith is my number one thing, that I do want to become a saint someday, and I don't become a part of this thing that is literally built for me, then I'm not serious. You can tell what someone's priorities are based on how they spend their money and their time.
Yeah, that's helpful. So that means you kind of came back to the faith, let's say around 2022, give or take, and then you were still building Lead Baller. And then I guess, how did that kind of reversion? I know it was probably a process of like understanding, but how did that end up changing your perspective on success? Because we talked about earlier that you kind of viewed success mostly from like a financial perspective. Did that change your view of what success really is at that point once you started to come back into your faith? I just want to understand, like, if you can compare and contrast how you thought about success before and after. A Catholic founder is somebody who recognizes that they are called to be an instrument of God's will in the world. We're not building a business for our own sake. We are simply stewards. If that describes how you think about entrepreneurship, we want you in the Catholic Founders Guild. We're growing an association of Catholic business owners who believe in these things deeply so that we can invest in, buy from, and support one another. We do this through our exclusive membership directory, monthly group calls, and our group chat. But there's a lot more to it than that. The Guild has a lot to offer. The cost is only $10 a month or $100 a year. So if you believe that you were created to create, join the Catholic Founders Guild today. You can do so by going to catholicfounders.com/subscribe and upgrade to any paid subscription. See you in the Guild.
Yeah, between truly believing in God and also having a beautiful child, those are two things that can really force you to divorce yourself from getting acknowledgement from the people that will like not be at your funeral, that like, you know, like the most, I wouldn't call them insignificant people, but as far as it relates to you, like their acknowledgement of you is the least significant. And I think a lot of people do chase acknowledgement from the most insignificant places. And so I started recognizing how insignificant the popularity that I was trying to get and the approval I was trying to get was from people. Because one, I have a son that wants time with me, and so you have opportunities to go to things and fly out to this and that, and to say, like, I just became like a no machine so I could spend more time with my family, because that's because true success is, you know, the formation of my family, helping their souls get to heaven. And then, you know, belief in God, and then learning from the saints was another one too. Like, you started to see that okay, so heaven, sainthood is the highest form of success, really. These are the people that love God better than best examples compared to anyone. And so a lot of them are poor. A lot of them suffered. And so what do I do with that? Like, this whole way of thinking of like money justifies everything. Well, actually, these are the most successful people, and a lot of them didn't have a lot of money. Now, is it okay if you do have a lot of money? Yeah, that's fine. Like, if God would like to 100x my income, I'll take it. But yeah, you start seeing these examples. And so then, instead of going to like signing up to be part of secular business masterminds where you get access to these influencers who've made this amount of money and whatever else, but have like horrible personal lives, the masterminds, that's what got me to start going to daily mass, which I didn't know was a thing up until that point, by the way. But like, it's like, man, okay, if heaven is the ultimate goal, the coolest people, the room that I want to be inside of, I want to get to know the people that are going to daily mass. I want those people to be my friends and my influences. Me and my wife were just talking about this because she was recognizing that there's a religious sister who just such a nice person. Like, she had one conversation with her like a year and a half ago, and somehow remembered her name when I bumped into her last month. And Morgan like just remembers, like, she had an aura. She was like very just beautiful and kind, and Morgan just saw something in her that she said she wants to see more of in herself. She's like, how do I do that? Because whatever. But and you know, one of those things is community. That's a big one for me. As we were saying in the beginning of this, I am heavily influenced by the crowd that I'm in and what they define success as. So what was so great, again, shout out to, I'm a number one Cent Ventures fanboy, not on the payroll yet, but having a community of other people that are in the doing the business thing too. Like, they're doing that day to day, but they're obviously putting Christ above all else.
Yeah.
Was a really, like, having an example was really helpful for me. I didn't have examples of what that looked like, I think, up until that point, and I thrive on just having examples of how I could do that.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I mean, I just want to, I guess, point this out is the core thing that changed, it seems, as though you began to recognize what the true objective ought to be, right, which is heaven. And then once you understood that, it's almost like, even though you were still pretty new in your faith, it just was like very instantly understood, oh, I need to be around the people who are trying to do it. I need to learn about the people who made that their ultimate goal. And this is, I think, something that's really hard for us as business owners, because on one hand, like, we have so much pull of the secular world, because some of us don't even start businesses just to make money. Like, I think a lot of people do, but there's a lot of people who just like, they just love what they're doing. But then they start to achieve some success. And because you do, you kind of get into a different kind of friend groups, and then before you know it, the thing you're aiming for is, $100 million in revenue, and that's the only thing that matters to you. And you start to set aside your family or your faith life, or I'm just too busy to go to daily mass because of whatever. And it's very simple that all we have to do is recognize the proper goal, and then we can, like, even if we're really not well formed in the faith, we'll naturally understand what steps to take to work towards that goal. So I like that a lot, man. I appreciate you sharing this story. I think we've covered like the core things that I want to about your story. I would like to ask you, maybe a little bit, taking a full circle here. What is the thing that motivates you now today? Like, now that it's not money, what is the core thing aside from just like, hey, I want to get to heaven? Is there another motivation that you have that kind of fuels you on a daily basis? Or is it just purely, hey, I want to get to heaven, I'm going to try to do my best with the work I do?
Yeah, I think I do care a lot about, I know I care a lot about shepherding my children's souls. That's very top of mind for me. Obviously, with my wife included. Yeah, I mean, that's like at the very top
Key
of the
thing.
list.
Yeah.
The other thing is though, like, because I do care about my professional success, but it's more defined as like, what's the quality of my work? Am I being a gift to the people that are trusting me? And how is the quality? How am I doing at being a good steward of the gifts that God gave me? And by the way, I'm recovering. It's not like I have this pull and tug. Like I actually listened to you and Jamie Baxter talking about this a little bit, and it is a needle to thread of, on one hand, not truly like fully divorcing yourself from growth of things, but also trying to grow it, I guess. And what's also funny, I want to point out about that, is I started thinking about, because Jamie was sharing his story. Obviously I'm good friends with John Cannon, and within the Catholic founder, and you're like at the center of this, hosting people on the show. But it seems like we have people that are like former seminarians who then went into business. And then you have these people like myself that never would have thought of that and are like recovering high achievers, I guess, and are trying to like now fit that within a Catholic business mold. And but we're kind of meeting in the middle there, which is really neat. But I do have my temptations to, my business partner knows this, at least David with the X Cathedra. We've been kind of talking about it, because I'll say things. I'll still do it. We're all like, hey, yeah, we gotta do this in this way, because this has the capacity. This vehicle doing it this way has the capacity to have like $100 million exit or something crazy like that. And he's like, hey, that sounds really weird, because you just said like you don't care about that.
Yeah.
So I still do that sometimes. But again, that shows the value of having values aligned people around you to keep that in check.
100%.
But I mean, David, he has 7 kids, so he still has to provide, and he's doing a heck of a job at it. But yeah, my motivators now are, when I'm spending enough time in prayer, is shepherding my family souls and providing good quality work and trusting where that leads.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think the trust in where it leads part is really hard for us as entrepreneurs, because we're always trying to plan things, and especially it's very glorified, the idea of exiting your business nowadays. Like, I actually don't think that should be as glorified as it is, because if you're building something truly of value, why would you want to get rid of it? Like, why would you sell it at all, right? Unless, of course, you've made it a prison of some sort and you're trying to escape it, right? Which is a whole other discussion. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Please leave us a review on your favorite podcast player. Like, seriously, we are competing against giants here. So give us a review so we can rank higher in discovery. It'll really help us. And if you do prefer to watch on YouTube, you can also go and check us out there. All right, let's cover a couple of my biggest takeaways from this discussion. Clarity about the goal that you're pursuing is critical. Without a goal, you're just aimlessly wandering. But with the wrong goal, you're missing the point. So get your goal right. For us and for those around us, the goal is heaven. Do you live in a way that represents that lives out that truth, that you believe the ultimate goal is heaven? Once you have this goal front and center, surround yourself with people who have that as their main focus. Maybe join Catholic Founders Guild, since we have solved that in many ways. Obviously, I'm plugging our work here, but it's part of the reason I built Catholic Founders myself, is I want to be surrounded by people who are like-minded. I don't like being alone when I'm building things. But the point is, keep your eyes set on the right objective, which is heaven. And it will guide you in the rest of the decisions that you make. It will also guide you in your mood about the business, about the ups and downs. It'll keep you a little bit more steady. All right, that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do share this with a friend. Reach out to Jimmy and tell him you heard the episode. Obviously, reach out to him if you'd like to learn more about X Cathedra, what he's doing there. And don't worry, we will be dropping that second part of the discussion with his little, mastermind component very soon. But in the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in. And do not forget, you were created to create. All right, God bless and happy building.